next speaker is an industrial hygienist, Deirdre Fitzgerald from the northwest part of the United States, and she'll tell you about her experiences in evaluating buildings and construction sites.
Hello, my name is Deirdre Fitzgerald, and I'm from Spokane Clean Air. And a year ago, I didn't know who ADAO was, and I'm very proud to say that today I do. And my presentation will enlighten you on how I became aware of the organization. So who is Spokane Clean Air? We're one of 7 local clean air agencies in Washington State. We're managed by a board of directors and an advisory council, and we administer state, federal, and local laws and regulations for managing air quality throughout Spokane. So one of the first things, what's the difference between a local clean air agency and probably more of the asbestos rules that you're familiar with? At a local level, we're talking about regulating at 10 linear feet or 48 square feet rather than the 160 and 260 from the federal NESHAP. We regulate non-friable asbestos-containing material. Just recently, within the last 3 years, we changed our rules where we regulate all vermiculite as asbestos-containing material. And another unique feature of our local reg is that it doesn't have to do with whether something's being renovated or demolished. If there's damaged asbestos in the community, you can report it, and our rules say that you have to go fix it. Some of the stats from our program, we have 1 full-time employee that's divided amongst 4 inspectors. And I started, like I said, 16 years ago. We used to get about 314 notices of intent. And last year, we got 777 notices of intent. 210 of those were emergency notifications. And these are permits to go do asbestos work. We had 67 inspector-initiated outreach activities, 48 citizen complaints. We issued 35 corrective actions, 14 notices of violation. So as an inspector, what do I hear when I go out to go investigate asbestos cases? One of the main things is people just don't realize the magnitude of products that asbestos-containing material is in. They think it was banned a long time ago. They can't believe that it's still there. There's a lot of communication breakdowns when the right hand doesn't know what the left hand is doing between owners and contractors. Hey, we did that asbestos survey, and well, where is it? And well, they don't have one. The scope of work changes in the middle of a project. Somebody really likes what's going on, and they go like, well, while you're here renovating, just go renovate that other room over there. But they failed to go get the asbestos survey for that room. And sometimes people just intentionally violate. Money comes first. So the polluter pays model, what I'm going to do is talk to you about 2 different scenarios here, or 2 different environmental cases. One is where an asbestos abatement contractor that's been in business for 20 years gets a job, and you'll see what happens. And the other one is where an investor group decides to remodel a hotel. So both of these are hotel-based. So when do work practices go wrong? The rolled up roofing you see is nickelite paper. It contains between 45 and 55% chrysotile asbestos. This is going to be a big job. It's about I forget what it was, like 120,000 square feet of nickelite paper removal. So I have my eyes on the project, and they should know I have my eyes on the project. And I drive by one day and sit across the road, and what happens next? They're free-falling the asbestos off the roof. This guy's in the back of the truck stomping down asbestos, and this is just a couple years ago. And this is an open hotel. Air conditioning units are running. Kids are walking around. And so we issue notices of corrective action. We issue notices of violation. This company's having a hard time coming into compliance. This is 3 or 4 days later. We're still looking at it. So this is 3 or 4 days later, and now you can see them, and they're just up on the roof. Anybody that knows anything about asbestos, you do asbestos slab. They're dry sweeping, they're abrading, they're doing almost everything that they're not supposed to be doing. And I'm not going to play all of it just because it's a little bit long. But just another case of those work practices are out there, and this does happen. So as it goes, while he's doing that, I'll just kind of finish out this last part. So this was kind of the end of this case or whatnot. So this case, we went to a federal grand jury with it, and we spent 2 days with the federal grand jury trying to get it tried criminally. And ultimately, why the grand jury thought that there was enough to proceed, the federal prosecutor didn't want to go there with it. So we ended up getting civil penalties, but there were no criminal charges in this case. Solutions aren't hard to come by. We weren't asking for a lot. You know, rent some equipment. Don't drop it off the roof. Don't have the guy stand in the back in the, you know, stomping down asbestos, and use some water. So the next case is the case that ended up joining us with ADAO. So this is another hotel, but in this instance, we're not talking about professional asbestos workers being involved right out of the go. This is kind of, rather than your house flip, this is supposed to be your hotel flip. So we're just out conducting some surveillance, and we noticed that a renovation has taken place. And so we go in and we begin to ask the questions. Where's your asbestos survey? They don't have one. We find out that they've damaged quite a bit of asbestos tile in the building. So we issue notices of violation to get it cleaned up. We issue notices of violation and corrective actions to get their survey. And so we get them in pretty good shape, like, right? So they have the survey now. They've had abatement contractors in to take care of the tile. They promise it's just going to be a facelift. And kind of in a closing of the corrective action, we take a walk through the building with them and point out to them, you know, this is asbestos pipe. You have an asbestos boiler. Don't touch it, or you need to call in professionals. Well, a year later, I get an anonymous complaint, and I go back out to this same hotel. And the first thing I notice walking in the door is they have people walking out the door with asbestos elbows with pipe legging in buckets. And I know right then everything's gone wrong. Over the winter, pipes freeze. And I don't know why they didn't know this, but they forgot to turn the heat on. And the pipes burst, and they have a mess on their hands, but they know it's an asbestos mess now, and they don't stop. They go out and they hire somebody off the street that's a former abatement contractor, and he decides to basically remove asbestos at night. And it was a mess. They throw the asbestos outside, it's in mixed debris piles, more notices of violation are issued, and they just sit on it, and we're having a really hard time getting them to clean it up. And so last time we went the federal route, and it didn't get us anywhere. So this time we learned that Bob Ferguson and the Attorney General's office in Washington State has environmental cases, and we asked them to take our case, and they took our case. And it actually ended up resulting in the worker that did the work got a 6-month jail term, and the guy, and $115,000 were awarded for the penalties, of which ADAO was a grantor of the money, and the Western States Project that helps train environmental inspectors got some of the funds too. So some of the biggest issues that people miss is there's no sense in doing asbestos wrong. In the long run, it just costs you more money. They had 3 or 4 hodgepodge surveys by the time they were done. They had to file additional notices of intent. And our fees were, not our fees, but our penalty amounts were $27,725. And they skipped out on those, but through the Attorney General's office, they will one day pay us our money for the fines. So what's the lesson here today? I think the lesson is that asbestos is still out there and things go wrong all the time. You're around it and you probably don't realize it, so be aware, keep an open eye, and if something doesn't look right, find somebody, find the right government agency, tell somebody. And that's all I have. Thank you.